Hello, and welcome to another episode of Faithful Resistance from Jefferson Unitarian Church. To be transparent, this podcast is being recorded on April 7th, about an hour after a 2-week ceasefire was announced in the war with Iran. Now, by the time you're seeing or hearing this, you've had a little time to process this latest development. I'm still in that combination of relief that bombers are not about to take to the skies and utter disgust that he placed the world in this precarious position in the first place. But this is not going to be a whole episode of ranting. In fact, we're going to talk about something quite different. We're going to continue the theme of joyful resistance that we spoke about with JUC Assistant Minister Jen Simon in the last episode. This time, we'll talk about music, because it's high time that we had a conversation with the Director of Music Ministry at JUC, Dr. Baker Purdon. So we're going to focus today, at least that's the intention, who knows where the conversation will actually go. We're going to focus on music in resistance. And what better person to have than Dr. Baker Purdon from Jefferson Unitarian Church, our Director of Music Ministry. Hi, Baker. Welcome to Faithful Resistance. Thanks for doing this. I'm going to ask with one of the most obvious questions, but I love to hear you because I know you know a lot about not just singing, but what the body does when it's singing. What does singing together actually do for a person's body?
Oh my gosh. I mean, so many things. There are a million studies, be it anecdotal or actual science, that when we sing together in a group, not only do our nervous systems connect to one another, do we literally feel each other through the act of singing, because if you think about it, we have to breathe at the same time to get the words out. We have to think all of this at the same time. And it creates such a sense of outward connection in the body because we are evolutionarily designed to be in community. We are meant to be together, to engage together, to participate together. And so when we do something like say the same words, sing the same notes or harmonies or whatever, breathe at the same time, our bodies soothe us into community. And that's, I think, obviously as a choir director, I have, an axe in this game, but singing in community literally heals your body from the inside out because we are just so meant to be together, and we live in this world where we are so encouraged to be away and isolated that it is an incredible thing, both emotionally and scientifically.
So there are the stories about how choirs that sing together a lot, that their heartbeats actually align. Mm-hmm. Is that a real thing?
To a degree. I mean, it depends on how hard science you want to get. But if you think about the fact that if we are all breathing at the same pace, it would make sense that the rest of your body systems also start to sink in. And our brains are kind of scary powerful sometimes. And when we all think about the same tempo, right, and you've got that internal beat going, your body reacts and your heartbeat will start to try to match that tempo a little bit. So it's equal parts yes, and who doesn't love a tall tale about singing?
That's right. So as long as we're talking about what singing together does, the emotional, spiritual, what are your thoughts about that?
When you think all the way back, I just finished watching the new dinosaur documentary on Netflix that Steven Spielberg put out. And you think all the way back to like our evolutionary roots where all of these things get created. We were meant to be a people. This idea of doing life on your own, of individualism, sort of happens, but it's so digital. It's so post-industrial. This idea that we can have a complete existence, we can get all of our base needs met on our own, just didn't exist. I mean, go all the way back to like our evolutionary ancestors. We lived in community, we hunted and gathered in community, and the way we processed life was in community, and often through, be it at what stage you're looking, chant, song, dance, movement, all of these things are how we understood life. And the biggest history of music is that it is the art of understanding life. It is how we understand our history, our future, our disagreements, our love, all of these things throughout our human history. when we try to grapple with a big emotion, with a cultural revolution, with a new tribe that has migrated down, we do it through song. We do it through the troubadours. We do it through all of these things. It is how we process the world around us.
It's an amazing thing to think about how much music can communicate that a spoken word cannot or does not.
Really, truly, I mean, the easiest thing, like big examples in American history that I think are, we can think about, when President Kennedy was assassinated. Most of us can kind of remember like the news anchor breaking in and can kind of imagine that. But what everyone really remembers is when the radio broadcast Adagio for Strings the next morning. And you hear that song, and there is something in your cells that evokes a feeling in a way that no eulogy, no word, no poem ever could, because we are just designed to seek out that level of emotion. And the only way it can happen is when you do sometimes strip away words and go through that musical core. It is crazy what music can do for the human mind and body.
Having actually been alive then, unlike Dr. Baker Purdon,
Well,
I can remember that, and the protests of the '60s, where music played such an incredible role. Woody Guthrie, Pete Seeger, Peter, Paul, and Mary, on and on it went. Now, I think you almost look at this through the lens of as a historical thing, having not lived through it yourself. So when you look through your lens as a young 30s, right, person, what comes to mind as the most powerful way that music has been used, at least in the past, as in faithful resistance?
gosh, that's interesting. I mean, my joke answer to that in a song that I don't know has necessarily stood the test of time is I remember just after 9/11, the absolute boom of like America songs. And the one that immediately comes in is like, "'Cause I'm proud to be an American." I sang that at my fifth grade recital.
Oh my gosh.
Uh-huh. Oh, I had that on like sheet music. I was playing it every day. Into that song. I'm trying to think, because it's what's really interesting is, and this is a thing that kind of makes me sad, is the digital music world has made that a lot harder to happen.
It really has.
You know, when a song really reaches the level of the way certain music did in the 60s and 70s doesn't happen anymore because we have so much more access to music that it's easier to be in a pocket. Because like I think about in my lifetime, the big events are, 9/11, they are COVID, they are those things. And we really never, it's hard to coalesce around a song these days, which I think makes the music movement in justice seeking that much harder, because it's not like you have the Peter, Paul, and Mary. It's not like you have the Seeger and the Dylan tunes. What's interesting actually is I think you used them then, and the ones that I think are the most knowable that we use now are the same ones.
This land is your land. If I had a
Exactly.
hammer, all those, the Guthrie songs.
I think I would argue those are probably still more prevalent at protests than anything new, save for like, we come up with a new chant or a new thing to a tune that's been used before. But I think because we have become so individualistic in our music consumption and our music taste, really, I think it's those songs have really survived and are still the songs of justice movements today, because they are intergenerational in a way that I still know at least the broad architecture of most of those tunes. I might not be able to, sing them back at you the way you could to me right now, but I've heard them and can pick them up in a way where generations above my own engaging in justice work right now have less exposure to songs of my time.
Yeah.
Not that we have a ton of great justice music coming out of my generation, save for things like Andra Day's Rise Up. There's the song that Cynthia Erivo sang in the Selma movie.
And it's not coming to my mind either. And Springsteen has a new one that he did at the big Minneapolis rallies.
But I really do think it's those tunes of the 20th century that still resonate and are still so prevalent in today, even across generations in justice work.
And songs, of course, that come from many traditions. Like, it's not all from the folk tradition; it's from the African American church tradition too. There are a lot of
Well, and
songs.
if you think about how many protest chants are based on tunes that come from either hymnody or from Black spirituals, a lot of the like melodies that end up getting co-opted into new protest chants.
Now, when you say the word co-opted, that to me is not the most positive word in the world. And I want to segue to the fact that you did some of your doctoral work on Black music being done by white conductors. I don't know, did I phrase that accurately enough?
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to get to a question about cultural appropriation or misappropriation of songs that come from the African American tradition.
Yeah. So I always, anytime I talk about this, the opening sentence is, I learned everything that I know about this from Dr. Rollo Dilworth, who is an incredible Black conductor and scholar and composer and arranger. And I mean, you know, especially because you're in my choir here at Jefferson Unitarian Church, but we do a lot of Dr. Dilworth's arrangements. And he presents, as many do, the conversation as appropriation versus appreciation, and looking at those as two sides of the coin. My work came a lot from looking at like the classical canon and a lot of classical choral conductors and ensembles' reticence to do the music of Black composers and to engage with spirituals and just music of the Black diaspora. Particularly, it's happened a lot throughout time, but particularly in the like post 2016 to now time, where we are just so much more broadly culturally aware of racism, and those of us that in good spirit are choosing to try to diminish that in our society are so aware of not trying to overstep our bounds. And one of my favorite anecdotes from Dr. Dilworth that he always gives to diffuse a usually room full of white conductors is someone will always ask the question, well, am I really allowed to do that music? Am I really allowed to have my all-white choir do a version of Swing Low? And his response almost always will be, what a great question. But I want to ask you, if you're not allowed to do that, does that mean I'm not allowed to do Mendelssohn? Pointing to himself as a Black man on stage. And asking that in a joking way, knowing that there's plenty of power dynamics at play there, but asking the question of why not? And the answer then is, of course you can, as long as you contextualize it. And the big takeaway is always, we in music and American music culture is vast and broadly founded on the creative work of Black artists. I mean, we can talk the entire genres of blues and jazz and R&B and rap, all of which have their roots in Black music. And if you look at pop and country and folk and all of these things, most of where it comes from when you trace it far enough back is Black musicians. Whether most modern musicians want to admit that or not. But the trick is you have to always own where something came from and do the work yourself as the artist to know where something came from. And then, do the music, sing the thing, do the thing, share it, and do work growing as you go, because none of us are going to become perfect experts the first day we try to do something. You know, I'm young, but a decade into my career as a conductor, I still don't know all the things. I've got 50 books on this shelf over here I still need to read, and people I need to see and listen to. But I try to learn more, and I try to learn, how was this performed when it was created? How was it culturally relevant? And from what culture did it generate when it was created? And then how do I both explain that to the people that I'm leading or singing with or for? And how do we connect that to our lived experience? Because all music is for everyone. Blanket statement. All music is for everyone, but you have a responsibility to credit where things come from.
Yeah. How do you see congregational singing, and then let's talk about personal singing too, contributing to collective action to show the gumption that we have to show these days?
Yeah, I mean, I think one easy answer is congregational singing is a chance to teach people music they can take to those sorts of events. I mean, specifically here in our congregation, in the last year, we've really brought in, like Rich Man's House, One Foot, like a bunch of tunes that we intentionally try to make sure in crafting our kind of like intra-congregational hymnody that we are teaching and ensuring that there are songs in our cultural zeitgeist that can be taken to protest so that our people do have some music in their heart that they can pull out when they need. I think what's been really interesting for me in the protests that I've been to in the last few years is they are kind of structured differently now. And
Hmm.
it's not like the marches of the 60s and the 70s where there was such a kind of collective songbook of that moment that would be sung in those moments. I think part of it is the network version of protesting that's happening right now. We do get the occasional like No Kings big march that happens, but the vast majority of our protesting right now is, a small community showing up at their ICE detention facility
Right.
with that 100 people just being there and witnessing and being in that space. And I think we, to a certain degree, lack the collective songbook in this moment that I kind of wish we had more of. I know there's actually um, the partner of our band leader here. I've seen at some protests around, and she literally has built this like big sign, like flip book sign thing that's got lyrics to a
Oh,
couple
that's
of
great.
protest chants that she can flip and then offer like a new lyric that she walks around
That's
with.
great.
Because I really look at like my age group, we don't have the language that yours does. Like that we just it's not part of the culture, I think, in a way. But I've seen, especially around Denver, I know there's a protest band that will show up that has charts that's like a
Right.
little little mini marching band. And I wish I knew their name right now.
Well, there's also a,
Um,
a protest choir called No
yeah,
Enemies. Yeah.
yes, absolutely. And it's so we're building those, but I do think it's really interesting to note that we've had to build them. That band has assembled and then that choir has assembled because we need them and it's not necessarily organically presenting itself in our
Oh, yes.
protests,
Do we
which
need them?
again, an interesting just data point in the way that we're not as culturally unified, at least in our music, in this era of
Yeah.
social justice.
Do you have this is a ridiculous question for me to ask because it's so big, but do you have a song that you use personally for healing?
It's new to me actually. We started this year a midweek Vespers service at our church because our senior minister here, Wendy Williams, and I, in this time, we're just everything is so big and hard, and it is really easy to just wear yourself down and not trust the world around you anymore. So we wanted a space where we could just do a little singing. There's like a prayer, a poem. We sit in silence together. And there's this singer-songwriter whose name is, I think, Karen Drucker, if I've got it right. And she's got several albums and books of just like simple meditation chant songs. And there's one called I Allow. And it's just this repetitive, there's 3 lines: I allow, I surrender, I allow, I surrender, love, hope, peace. And it just repeats over and over and over again.
Do you
And
remember
it's
the
funny.
tune just sitting here that you could do it?
Yeah, it's I allow, I surrender, and that goes for a while. And then blah, blah, blah. It's you're asking me to remember words right now. Something bring in peace, bring in hope, bring in love, bring in joy, love, hope, peace. And it's just this slow, plodding cycle. And it's funny that I just was talking about this in a meeting with Wendy that we've both had a bit of a week in the last week and both independently found ourselves early in the morning before the sun was up running through that song in our heads because that's become a thing that just we've done it for her and I at this point, 17, 18 times as we've been doing this midweek service, and we sing that every time we do that service, that it's built this like off switch in my brain that says, okay, nervous system, we can deal with this in a minute, but right now the heart rate needs to come down, the blood pressure needs to come down, and I need to feel like I'm safe enough to solve this problem. And that song just instantly does it for me.
We should call it more than faithful resistance and more than joyful resistance. We should call it musical resistance too, because it plays such a role.
It does. And a big part of why you sing at a protest and why those things happen is because it does hold you. And some of the songs will energize you and rev you up and build your feeling, build your anger, build your moment. But those songs are also a moment to just let the nervous system release a little bit. Because we're not protesting because everything's hunky-dory. We're not out there because we're feeling great about things. We're mad. That's part of the core feeling of justice is you do have to be challenged by something. You do have to be upset about something. But what especially our wisest Black ancestors will teach us is you cannot do this without joy and love. Because if you try to do this only through anger, that's how you get the other side of the political and social spectrum. There is not joy behind taking healthcare away from trans youth. There is not joy in saying that we're sending a 9-year-old gay kid to conversion therapy in Colorado. There is no joy there. There is just animus. There is avoidance. There is dislike. And the justice movement is saying, hell no, that's not what we're going to do. But to do that, we also need to love each other. And we are doing it out of love. Because everyone deserves that feeling. Everyone deserves to be seen and valued and held. And the music gives us a chance to say, oh my God, I'm so angry at immigration enforcement, at the government, at the Supreme Court. But when we sing together, it's just like taking a little bit of that emotional weight off, sharing it among everyone there, and just reminding us that like, my heart rate can come down. I am okay. We can do this. And it's so necessary to just like build that sympathetic nervous system with the community, because if we don't have that, we're just yelling and nothing gets done when we're all just mad all the time.
I'm going to remember you saying these things, because over the next few days, who knows how much more deeply we're going to have to draw to get through it, and to get through it with love.
And my God, if you don't think I'm going to my Spotify after this and pulling up the anti-war playlists from the 70s, because it looks like we're about to be right back there.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us today, Baker. I know I have a million more questions, but not a million more minutes right now. So thanks for being here, and I hope you come back.
Of course, anytime.
So who knows what will happen in the next 2 weeks? We could be right back at the precipice of an extended war again. But don't let yourself feel powerless. We are not powerless when it comes to how we approach the world and our neighbors. We are not powerless when we gather in our faith communities. We are not powerless when we choose to put love at the center. Keep checking in on the website, jeffersonunitarian.org, where the Faithful Resistance page has ideas for your involvement. And let's all just keep trying to do the next right thing. Go out, do the next right thing.